Good morning, everyone. My name is Helen Ying. I'm the co-chair for the 2020 AAYLC with Hua Huynh. On behalf of the planning team, we're so excited to have you join the 28th AAYLC in our first virtual conference. In the midst of this unprecedented time, we had to learn to pivot quickly in many ways, as that is what happened on March 19th, when the team decided to pivot to a virtual conference. Last November, when we started to plan this conference, we chose Power Up as the theme. And today we are indeed powering up in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. But we're excited that 200 of us are on today's conference, representing 38 different schools, different high schools. And we're so excited that Governor Brown has chosen to deliver a her welcome remarks to us. Unfortunately, she's not able to join us in person because the White House has called her for a briefing this morning, and we learned that yesterday, and we had to pivot one more time. But we are so glad to have her Director of Equity and Diversity, Ms. Sophorn Cheang, to join us today to deliver her remarks. And here before you is Ms. Sophorn Cheang.
Thank you, Helen. So good morning, everyone. As Helen mentioned, unfortunately, Governor Brown could not join you here today, and she sent her regrets that she cannot be with you. She was so looking forward to be here. Actually, she was so looking forward to be with all of you for this year's in person. But because of the public health crisis, unfortunately, we have to turn on the way that how we engage with each other. And now here we are on the virtual conference. So I am deeply honored to deliver the governor's remarks and her personal messages to welcome you all to the 2020 Asian American Youth Leadership Conference on her behalf. So I'm going to read her remark here. Good morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure to welcome you to the 2020 Virtual Asian American Youth Leadership Conference. I wish that I could be there to share in the excitement ahead of you today. But I am proud of everyone in this conference call for doing your part to keep your fellow Oregonians safe. We know from the most recent modeling from Oregon Health Authority that staying home is working to save lives here in Oregon. I want to assure you all today that this is a safe space for you to learn and express yourself free from the anti-Asian racism and xenophobia. I know this is a hard time, but the program here today is designed to call you to action. You have a great opportunity here to learn more about yourself and how you can dig into serve your neighbors and loved ones. Now more than ever, Oregon communities need leaders. Leaders like you. Today is about you and your future. Business, education, and cultural leaders have come together to show you how to use the tools you already have to continue to build healthy, positive communities all over the state. A few of your panels speak to some issues and are near and dear to my heart, voting and the census. And now, and I know firsthand the powers of voting. During my first run of state legislators, I won by only 7 votes. People still stop me in the grocery store to say, I was your 7 votes. And whether they were or not, their voice make a big impact. Yours can too. Your vote is your voice, and every voice matters. Because the problem you care about, homophobia, sexism, climate change, immigration, are addressed in major ways on the ballot box. They are also addressed in different ways by participating in the census. Like many of you, I have been focused on empowering all Oregonians to participate in the census, especially those who are harder to count. Especially in these unprecedented times, I'm gravely concerned about the effects of an undercount in the census. Fewer funds for critical public services that hard-to-count communities rely on, like Medicaid, SNAP, and Section 8 housing vouchers. While the work to combat the current public health crisis is our key focus right now, we know that motivate Oregonians to feel their 2020 census is more important than ever. But that's enough from me for now. I'm just delighted to welcome you all to this conference. You are going to learn a lot to take all of it in. I think I speak for your teachers, parents, and friends when I say I look forward to seeing what you can do next. That was Governor Brown's message. Before I leave, I just want to take this opportunity to recognize and thank Helen and also many of the volunteers and also and especially the Chinese American Citizen Alliance Portland Lodge for your dedication and incredible leadership to continue building leadership pipeline for our Asian Pacific Islander youth. It's such a great pleasure, and again, I am really honored to be able to be a part of this conference and deliver Governor Kate Brown's message. I hope that you all have a great conference ahead of you today and enjoy the day here with different conversation and also networking. Thanks, Helen. I turn it back to you.
Hi, thank you, Sophorn, for your being with us here this morning on behalf of Governor Brown. We know this is a busy time for you and the governor, so we appreciate her remarks for our students here this morning. So thank you so much. And hi, everyone. My name is Hua Nguyen. I'm also the co-chair for AAYLC this year with Helen Ying. And this is our program for today. So we're excited for the program that we have developed for this year virtually. And we'll start our program today with the keynote presentation by Alex Ding in just a few minutes. And then after the keynote presentation, you'll go into your small groups with the assigned link that you should have received in your email. The small group presentation will be called Power Up in the Midst of COVID-19. So after your small groups, you will go into a lunch break on your own. And then after your lunch break, please come back here at 12:45 for a small social circle so that you can network with other students from other different high schools. And then after that, you will go into the afternoon workshop. So from 1 to 1:45, you will go to your student choice workshop that you have selected for the first round. And then after that, you'll go to your second student choice workshop from 2 o'clock to 2:45 p.m. And then after that, you will come back here to this room, room A, for a closing program where we'll have a special closing performance from Alex Ding, as well as we'll recognize all the volunteers that have made this program possible. And then you'll have an opportunity to win cash prizes for a Kahoot game that we'll have at the end. So a lot of the questions in the Kahoot will be geared towards the program and the workshops that you'll be participating in. So please pay attention. So without further ado, we are very honored to have Alex Ding as our keynote speaker for the virtual AAYLC this year. Alex is a Portland native who grew up in Southeast Portland and attended Cleveland High School. So let's give a virtual welcome to AAYLC's 2020 keynote speaker, Alex Ding.
Thank you so much, Hua. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining me on this Friday morning. I know it's a little strange and a little chaotic, and I think it would be disingenuous to address all of y'all without addressing what's going on right now. I'm coming live from my parents' house. I am truly in the bedroom that I had my high school experiences in. So this has been a very, very fun and eye-opening experience for me, thinking about patterns, thinking about circles, thinking about narratives, thinking about how we tell our story. And I think a lot of us are concerned about the best way to be ourselves. And it's really difficult to be yourself. But in the very end, I feel like you have to address everything honestly and as specifically as possible. And that means that if you are like me, an Asian American who grew up in Portland, Oregon, and is currently 26 living in this time of quarantine, then that's exactly how I'm going to respond to this. And that's exactly what kind of story I'm going to tell. And I'm hoping by the end of this, you'll learn that even though our stories are all individual, when we come together, it creates something bigger. So this is a new poem that I wrote during this time It's also National Poetry Month. Shout out to National Poetry Month and my big stack of books over here. But this is a new poem I wrote a couple of weeks ago based off of a poetry prompt brought to you by the wonderful folks at ATX Interfaces in Austin, Texas poetry group. Shout out to my friend and poet Sam Slupski for helping me with this poem. And my mom says this reminds her all of this of childhood. And I wonder who is given a chance. Her hands move between mango and knife. She looks at my forearm and I pull down my sleeve. She winces, goes back to the yellow flesh, and I apologize for my scars. She finishes cutting up the fruit and tells me, eat. She walks away before I can say anything. I always think I have to fill the air with something, anything, but I'm learning to listen and be patient and not just wait for my turn to talk. My brother is trying so hard. He's running the shop while my dad takes it easy for once. One morning, he's talking to my mom, asking her for advice because, Mom, I know I don't understand Alex. It just sucks. I want to talk to him, but it's like we're speaking two different languages. I don't know what to say for once. Instead, I wake up earlier in the day to catch him at breakfast before he leaves to work. Good morning, little bro, he says. Good morning, brother, I say back. He's taking on a lot. I'm breaking down, but he picks me up. He's good at picking up the pieces. A few nights ago, my dad, my mom, and I all arguing, all upset. Then come on speakerphone, my oldest brother and the second oldest brother, a family dinner, like always, and my third oldest brother, John, the one who lives at home with me right now, picks up the phone, calms us all down, keeps the peace. My dad thinks he can still go to work, even though my mom is so worried with everything going on, with all these increases in crime, and my dad says he'll be fine. He's lived this long already. And my mom, hands aching from holding on for even longer, asks, why do you want to take the risk? My parents, the immigrants who made it, are alchemists who once won their pain into bread. Our skin, that good brown, not dirty, but clean like soil after a storm. The earth freshly plowed, tilled, we willed it, and what grows here is wheat. I come from a family that always cooks enough for everybody to eat. We used to never ever talk at dinner. Now we all have something to say. We all speak, and of course we'll still get mad at each other. And I guarantee you I am making mistakes even as I'm actively trying to get better. But hey, we're breaking bread now. I'm waking up earlier now. I've learned that there's a lot of hurt and everywhere, and even if it's fixed with gold and worth more now, was it worth the breakage in the first place? I do not need to be broken to have meaning. My skin was gold to begin with. And with that being said, I think the easiest way for me to begin telling my story is to start from the beginning. And the beginning for me starts with my parents because they kind of made me or whatever. And my mom is Chinese and my dad is Vietnamese. My mom grew up in Vietnam, and they both escaped Vietnam around 77, 78, around the collapse and the destruction of Vietnam itself. They're commonly referred to as boat people. And I remember my mom telling me and my three older brothers her escape story like every year ever since I was like 5 years old. And I remember that it would take hours to tell because a lot of stuff happened to her and her family in trying to get to this country and trying to just find a new home and a new place to be safe. And I remember my mom telling me and my brothers this, and she specifically wanted us to know this story because she wanted us to know where we came from. And also, she didn't want to forget her own story. She had to remind herself, and she reminded herself by telling us. And through telling us, she was able to remember why this was so important and why she wanted us to know. So this poem is dedicated to my mom. Everyone I love has superpowers, and they will tell you that their origin story did not make them who they are. The people that I look up to do not tell me that their Uncle Ben, destruction of Krypton, Night at the Opera is what made them strong. The people that I look up to do not tell me that their drug addiction or alcoholism or grief is what made them strong. The ability to become after the worst things sledgehammers you is what makes them great. My mom does not tell me that her story is what made her super. Let me explain. I was born and bore witness to her immense strength. As far as superheroes go, she is by far the most overpowered. With a frame of 4 foot 10 inches, my mother, Naktu Tran, redefines comic book badassery. Super strength. With one hand, she has carried 4 sons and tossed their sorry selves through college, and with the other, made my father an immovable mountain, a pebble smoothed into the shape of her palm. Intelligence, such gems like do it right once or do it wrong 3 times. Don't be sorry, just don't do it again. And of course, the world's favorite, of course I know everything. I'm your mom. Telepathy, all the times I thought I was being sneaky in high school, but she was just letting me get away with it. Clairvoyance, she can see ghosts too. She still sees her father, like when she was 7, still hanging in the kitchen after he found out the communists were going to take him away. Still drifting in her mind back and forth, a pendulum ticking away her innocence. She hears ghosts too. She hears the cries of my sister, still feels her small form, all bundle of light, all star glow, gone as soon as she shone in this world. Resilience, all she could do was watch her mother's wedding ring spirit away into the captain's pocket, jingling with all the other boat people's tickets out of the only home that they have ever known. Watch countries deny refugees of safety, of humanity, of existence. Watch days crawl in a re-education camp where she learned nothing but adversity, immortality. She should have died. Become a statistic about Vietnamese immigrants who never made it, another prisoner of Viet Cong, and another shouting point for American protesters to end a war that she simply called childhood. And yet she stands as a lesson to prove how incredible we all can be. She has never let her tragedy trump her triumph, never accepted that this was all there was, never waited for a miracle to grant the miracle I call mom, only stitched up my cape and told me, fly. Thanks. I remember once I did that poem at a competition, and it was able to clinch my win. It got the highest score of the night, and I was very excited, and I got to move on to finals, and I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, I did your poem, and I won. And she said, you're welcome. So that's my mom. And my dad, on the other hand, I have never really heard his Vietnam escape story. Like, I've heard bits and pieces about it, but he's very, very mysterious. Kind of to quote like Hassan Minhaj, like, all immigrant parents kind of love secrets, and like my dad has never really fully told me his story. And at first, I always thought this was weird because my mom would always tell me and all my brothers her story every year, and we knew it like the back of our hands. But we never knew our dad's story, and I always thought that was strange growing up. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that everybody has their own story to tell, and it's not up to me to decide how somebody wants to tell that story. And how my dad loves telling his story is through the fact that he made it to America, and that he has 4 boys and all of them went through college, and that he has a loving wife, and he has a house and a family and food to eat and a roof over his head, and he's happy with his life now, and that's how he wants to tell his story. So I remember wanting to write a poem for him and not really knowing how to do it, because I wanted to start with the beginning. And when I asked my dad how he got into the car business, because my dad's been a mechanic my entire life. He's always worked with cars. And he told me that he got to this country and saw all of these magnificent metal beasts roam the streets, each stronger, more glitter than the last. He told me, son, America loves cars. So I decided to learn everything about them. Someone will always be needed for repairs. We don't talk much, my dad and I. speak a total of like 13 words when we drive home, and let the hum of the pavement fill in the rest. My dad likes cars because they're easier than people. People don't have a check engine light, don't have a dashboard, don't tell you if something is wrong. But cars are always honest. My dad is always honest. Nah, he doesn't talk much, but he lets his motor oil hands speak for him. Growing up, my brothers and I never learned much about cars. 4 sons of a mechanic, and not one of us could replace a tire. My dad never taught us, said he would be around forever to fix all of our cars. Plus, we'd be college men. We'd be doing more important things with our hands. He never talks about love, but he always shows it. So while my dad teaches me to drive, he tells me, listen to the car. Cars tell you what's wrong, but only if you listen. And I'm trying to listen to the whir of the engine, pistons pumping fire and gasoline as we cruise down Powell, and I think of the power to get metal father and son down the boulevard, and I hear my dad's heart. I hear this heavy machinery, all ignition and patience, as I forget to switch my blinker on, or I go too fast in the school zone, and my dad laughs and tells me to check my mirrors, check my blind spots, check my weaknesses, tells me to listen. My dad has been listening his entire life, never once flipped on the emergency brake, kept sugar out of his gas tank, turned the key, and carried us with him. His heart is getting weaker, though. Nothing lasts forever. Some things you can only prevent from breaking down further. I try to find the owner's manual to my father, try to reassemble the engine of his childhood to see what steered him here, but his make is of another generation, something I can't understand, something I don't find instructions to, something his dashboard refuses to show me. There is so much mileage in my father's bones, spots in the road never ventured because he never took us there. He told us dead end, wrong way, turn around. I don't know what he is hiding in his workshop, what corroded secrets he harbors like rusted ghosts in a junkyard. All I know is I want my hands to look like they have been dipped in oil, to look like they have done something important, like a mechanic's, like my dad's. I want to be like my dad, y'all. Someone who always carries you from the backseat into your bed, who lets you sit on his lap and steer the wheel, who always reminds you to buckle your seatbelt. Dad, I know you won't ever tell me what is wrong, but it's okay. We'll just drive instead. I promise. I'm listening now. So, my mom and dad met in Virginia, and then they had my 2 oldest brothers, Richard and Eric, and then they moved to Portland, Oregon, and had my 3rd oldest brother, and then they had me, and I've lived here. I grew up, born and raised here, and our entire family is mostly here now. I've grown and loved and learned and really appreciated Portland, and I've always kind of called this my hometown. But growing up in Portland is kind of weird because, one, like, let's be real, y'all, we make white people. Like, this is white culture capital. But like the second thing, which was the main thing, was like I didn't realize how white it was until like I got older, because I mostly hung out in like deep Southeast and like 82nd and stuff. So I only hung out in like the cool neighborhoods and stuff. So I didn't realize that it was so not diverse until I kind of got outside of my neighborhood. And the only reason why I got outside of my neighborhood was because I was enrolled in the Mandarin Immersion program. So I went to Woodstock, Hosford, and then Cleveland. My neighborhood schools were Lentz, Kellogg, and Marshall. That's where, and my brothers went to Lentz and Kellogg as well. They went to Lincoln though. But that was kind of my story growing up, was that I always was in a different neighborhood. I was learning new things really, really young. And all at the same time, I would be speaking English, Vietnamese, and Chinese all kind of at once. And like no one except for like my family could understand me. And once I got like lost in a grocery store and like no one could understand what I was saying. So they had to be very specific about the way that I spoke. And also as a younger child, I still do speak very quickly, but I spoke very, very fast, and like literally no one could understand me. So I had to go to speech classes, I had to take speech therapy, I had to learn the difference between languages and stuff. And this is a poem dedicated to all you folks out there who had a little jar at home. That was the English jar, and every time you spoke English, you had to put money in there. This is shout out to all my multilingual folks out there. I remember just not knowing how to speak. When I was in preschool, my entire family was so worried that no one would understand me. I spoke this Frankenstein monster tongue of Vietnamese and English. The gaps between two broken languages cannot make a full sentence. Every other Wednesday during kindergarten, I'd be pulled out of class to fix my speech. They told me what was wrong was that my words blurred like hummingbird wings, and the song came out as a whirlwind, too quick to comprehend, too fast to decipher. There were strands of line pouring out with different clicks and keys, a broken Morse code that twisted wicked confusion easy. I learned how to smooth and comb the knots of my talk at the same time I was taught Chinese in elementary school. No one would expect chipped china plates lined along the soft of my gums. I only mastered English though. During family gatherings, uncles and aunts spoke slowly to me, sentences hanging in the air, while on the other hand, I would read letters with important headings and big government stamps to my parents. I made speeches. I learned to do jump rope rhymes like 99 nuns in an Indiana nunnery, or I wish to wash my Irish wristwatch, things my parents could never say. And in class, I studied Chinese, found out how to say the things I already knew how to say in English, but forgot to label in Vietnamese. And so there's some Chinese words that sound exactly like their English definition, Coca-Cola, cafe, emir, and there are some Vietnamese words that simply sound ugly and jagged when they dangle out of my mouth. They hang awkward and loose from my teeth. I speak elbows and frayed vocal cords. As hard as I tried to adopt my native voice back, it never came out as smooth as the silky commercial talk that I heard on television every day. My mother is Chinese. My father is Vietnamese. I am American. She speaks Chinese. He dreams Vietnamese. I speak repaired tongue. I dream renovated dialect. I'm sorry, but can you speak a little bit slower? Em không biết nói tiếng Việt. I'm sorry, but can you just repeat yourself? 我不知道说很多中文. It's not that I don't want to talk to you, right? It's just because I can't. It's because I don't know how. I'm still trying to tell you. I'm still holding on so tightly to the stitched words and patched up language of my childhood. Even in my perfect English, there are some things I just can't say. Something is a Vietnamese word that does not exist in English. Means I am done. Means I am through with you. I am at the end of my rope. And as I got older and started seeing more and more of Portland and seeing more and more about how I felt about these things, I think one of the biggest real experiences that I had to constantly deal with was this kind of double-edged sword of worrying how I looked to other people and how other people saw me as well. It was something that I always constantly thought about. And like, your boy has like pollen allergies, like really bad pollen allergies, and like I sneeze and have watery eyes and like will maybe cough in public, and sometimes people will step away from me, and it's fine, I guess, but like I've just had pollen allergies my entire life living in the Northwest, and I didn't think that this was going to be one of those things where we were talking about Asianness versus Americanness, about who belongs, about who doesn't, about the way the world sees us or treats us, or even just interacts and responds to us. I didn't think that this would be a thing, but of course it's always going to be a thing. I think there's a difference between wanting to prove your Americanness versus trying to play for your Americanness versus just simply existing and trying to be who you are. This poem is a very intense poem. It goes very, very fast, and it's trigger warning and content warning for racism and microaggressions and like powerful and strong language. But this is a poem that first started off as a self-portrait poem, but I could not could not get out of my head what other people thought about me. And so the poem eventually evolved, and I finished the poem, and it became Portrait of the Asian Boy, but as the world sees him, or fuck you, it was a compliment, or I'm not racist, but what's your Oriental name? Give me your delicate pronouncement made for you with 1 part mother, 1 part father, a word that holds an entire family of meaning in its syllables. Yeah, that one. Now butcher it for me. Leave out the weird shit. No intestines, no organ meats. I don't want to see your heart. Slice your name into bite-sized pieces. I hate getting food stuck in my teeth. I hate slow service. I yell, the loudest and widest voice in a room filled with spineless servers, mules who know their manners, know their place to be removed, like silk, like a condom, like off a checklist, a brown earth void to be conquered, my white flag, your surrender. The takeaway is I take away everything. Buddhist trinkets you call sacred, I call museum donation. My friends call dope beads, bro. Oh shit, you got that from that chink store, right? The one that always smells like rotten fish, right? But I get it. There are differences. It's a cultural thing. It's an Asian thing. I get it. You're a thing. So don't get mad when I ask who manufactured you. I'm learning about your people. I'm reading the manual that came with your containers. See? Model minority says right there on your box's label. It lists every way I can use you. You speak English so good. Tutor me in math. Where do I get that good pho? But you know what they say about Chinese food? You're hungry 20 minutes later. It's all good though, because these fobs are shipped in by the boatload, but they cannot speak anything except their stupid robot language, all metal clanging and ching chang chong. So replace the mouth with a Confucius platitude generator by day, Oriental rug at night, such an exotic lay, a respectful fuck, you dutiful fetish. Wow, no wonder there's so many of you, all the same, each one of you, a takeout container emptied. I mean, look at your sticker. It says made in my interest. Do not disobey me, otherwise I'll cancel your show, Margaret Cho. I'll rip out your fangs, Liu Kang. I'll slap on buck teeth, turn you into a gong, scream for me after I strike you. You people all own laundromats, right? You people know how 2 wongs make it white, right? You people know how to handle bleach, so why not pour it over your forever foreign bodies? Look, look, your portrait is done. I made it for you. It's a white sheet of paper, endless possibilities. Hey, do you know how to fold origami? I want to make 1,000 of you so my wish will come true, then discard your corpses like wishing on a shooting star, guaranteeing my comfort out of your already dead, burning, and brilliant body. So sometimes I get mad, y'all, and continuing those feelings, has anyone ever been in the awkward position where you're in class and someone says something dumb and you don't want to say something, but you feel like you have to say something, but then you don't want to be that dude, but then you kind of want to be that dude, or like everyone's looking at you because they already know you're that dude, so you feel like you have to say something, and you're always just put in this awkward political position in which like you're supposed to be learning in class and studying things, and yet it's your job to educate the class and sometimes the teacher at large, and it's really, really annoying. And this is a poem kind of explaining that experience. Shout out to everybody who just gets emotionally fatigued and tired and exhausted at having to explain all of these dumb things over and over and over again. This is inspired by true events. I'm trying to explain to the eye rolls in English 395 why it always has to be about race. For starters, because it is about race. You made it that way. There's a topic that draws perfect pitch on your heartstrings. It tugs and twangs the chords perfectly. You can't help but talk about it. You defend it nail, tooth, and hammer to the very end. For me, race is not that topic. Burgers are. I like talking about burgers. For me, race is not a topic. Race is a shadow, painted permanent on my first bedroom walls. I never noticed how dark it was until I got older. My eyes focused and my chest shone brighter. This is when the churning in my stomach began. Try to imagine it like an optical illusion. Once you see it, you can't not see it. And so you keep witnessing this presence creep with tendrils, a car crash where you are the only person in both vehicles, but you are not driving. This rolling thick fog, and you get yourself wrapped in it, and your body shakes and you shiver, but you never let your voice tremble. I hear your arguments, you devil's advocate, which who even wants to be an advocate for the devil? Okay, whatever. I appreciate your arguments. I really do. I see the dance shoes tied perfectly on your tongue and the way your contentions hold tension like the world's only dance floor. Yo, it's impressive. It takes hard-boiled work. But imagine never being able to take off that work uniform, that fancy attire. Picture your speech dressed for court every day, how tired your words must get, always being so stern and formal and infallible, a pendulum, infinite fatigue. I would love to give it a rest, but I don't get to sleep it off. This thing wakes me up every time I start to dream. Nightmares are the only time it leaves me alone, so I don't sleep. I don't get to sleep, even if I wanted to sleep. And believe me, I do. I'm exhausted. So shout out to all the folks in English 395, except my professor was actually really, really cool. So every time someone would say something dumb, she would correct them before I would have to. And that was really, really dope of her. And sometimes when she couldn't, she would like kind of give me like the look, be like, hey, can you do this? And I'd be like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Don't worry. So shout out to to some good teachers and professors, not all of them, but a lot of them are doing their best. And you know, I feel like a lot of people will try to say, oh, you write too much about being Asian. Oh, you write too much about this. Oh, you write too much about that. But like inherently speaking, any poem I write is an Asian poem because I am Asian. And I know they don't want to talk about like racism and stuff, and they don't want to talk about the heavy topics, but like, that's just the kind of situation that we're in. It would be disingenuous if we never just referenced the quarantine. It would be really irresponsible if we didn't talk about self-distancing and making sure that we're taking care of each other. It would be disingenuous to not talk about these things and to address that they are something that happens to other people and a lot of people every single day in a lot of different shapes and forms. And, you know, this is for all the critics out there that claim that my poetry was, quote, too Asian or too political or too whatever, because you know what? I will stop writing poems about my race the day I shop with my mother and the clerk doesn't roll his eyes. When I drive with my father and do not signal a stereotype, that's the day I abandon this slanted path that I walk, where I can finally see all around me despite the slit of my eyes. Speak without fear of an accent, even though you still will hear it. These poems will become cinder and dust when I no longer look too burnt to be on a silver screen, when my tongue is enough to be understood in anyone's ears, especially the ones that always note how eloquent I talk, the ones that perk up with shock when they don't hear the rusted chainmail, when they can't see the chink in my armor. This won't exist in the better post-racial world, the world that doesn't qualify my work as Asian, as pretty good for as you know he only wins because deliver me from this life where my anxiety is a double-edged hatchet ready to bury, like me, one edge wanting to apologize constantly, the other wanting to sharpen off the backs of flagpoles holding Confederacy, but I am always covered in my own blood, but so are they, and so are these pages, and I am never not tiptoeing on the blade's jawline. I took my first steps here, so I'll stop writing this poem when I can afford to be clumsy and not worry about cutting off my own head if I trip. Of course, it's my fault though. Never yours, always mine. I shouldn't be nervous. I'm being paranoid. I'm advantaged. I have affirmative action, model minority, a higher median wage than a white man. I have so much going for me. Socially acceptable fetish, dress me in silk and I will fit in your teeth or sheets or platter on fine china. Make me wash the plate you eat me on after you crack me open and I spill exotic fortunes. I am so polite. I leave my aggressions on slips of paper with lucky numbers on the back. I am your lucky day, golden coin, dragon, garden. And look, this was supposed to be an unapology. Yet here I am so fluent and sorry that you don't even question that this is my native language, how you always laugh at me for being so Asian, and here is the most punchline thing about me. The silence after the joke, my willingness to put myself in the boiling pot and never scream. And maybe you're right, maybe we all do look alike, like how a knife only sees meat to be cut to fit inside your mouth. I wasn't gonna do this next poem, but I saw later on the Power Up presentation a couple of historical moments in Asian American history, and I thought this would be a good poem to perform. And then I have one more poem at the end of this. Thank you again so much for listening. It's a really, really difficult and weird and strange and chaotic time out there, but I hope you know that even though that this is all affecting us, it's affecting us individually, uniquely, and whatever you can do to help out, to check in with someone else, to take care of yourself, whatever you need to do, you need to do. Just like how inherently any poem or anything that I do is Asian, anything you do to survive this quarantine is what you need to do to survive this quarantine. And no one should judge you for that. No one should say anything about your ways of taking care of yourself or loving yourself or making sure that you are safe. And a lot of the times I will write, I will journal, I will write poetry, but sometimes I have a hard time writing poems because I don't know what to put in and what to leave out, right? Kind of the whole, you can't see the forest for the trees, but also if a tree makes a sound and no one is there to hear it, like there's a difference between knowing something and seeing somebody for who they are and not what they are. Once at a poetry show where my name was on the program, they called me imported talent. A man complimented me on a poem I did about baseball. I think it was a Bosia poem. Still don't know what he was talking about. Told me it was hilarious. I laughed along. I did not correct him because it does not matter. I played on. That's the work. Vincent Chin, Chinese American, seen by 2 Detroit auto workers, assumed Vincent was Japanese, told him, "It's because of you we are out of work," as they brought a baseball bat to his head and beat him to death on the night of his bachelor party. A policeman who witnessed it said they were swinging as if, quote, for a home run, and so I run home. My dad always said no one wanted to do mechanic work. That's why he's had the job for so long. Longer hours, my dad has the longest work week and it still has not ended. Late into the swing shift, graveyard shift gears, and that's how easy it is to remember what brought us here. The ground I was planted in is the same they bury me in. I am a seed, but they see weed, they see invasion, they see foreign, and now I look at myself and see my body in a grave, a garden growing grief. The first time I was called a gook, I immediately looked up what it meant, and did you know that it is a mishearing of the Korean word for country? Do you know what it's like to leave your country, to make your plot of land an entire story, but they will not listen? Have you ever heard a family tree pull out his own roots, smooth and carve his bark into a boat, sailed with saplings for fertile soil, solid land, a place to call home, dirt between toes, good earth for his sons to become an orchard? I think every parent has a fear that no matter what they do, they will never keep their child safe from the chainsaw mouth of this world. So as we grow and have our flowers torn and grow with branches broken and grow and fruits stolen and grow, they reap, we sow, we grow, we are cut down, and I see that a tree is only a tree until it is made into a book or a baseball bat or a casket or a toothpick. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. This will be my last poem of the keynote, and then I hope to see all of y'all at the different workshops, and can't wait to see what you guys have in mind for the different discussions. I'll see all of y'all as soon as I can. This was the first poem I ever wrote about race, and the first draft took me about like 1 hour to finish, and I always think that it's because I had been writing this poem for like 19 years and I never, ever got around to writing it until I was ready for it. And this will be my last poem of the keynote. If you know the words, sing along. So he said to me, "What kind of Asian are you?" And I said back, "Well, sir, that's kind of a loaded question. What kind of Asian do you expect me to be? Because anyway you slice that egg roll, I am still pretty much whatever you want to see. I have played many a Far East stereotype. Awkward math genius, cold and calculated kung fu expert, assistant to Dr. Jones, you crazy. It's always dependent on the circumstance. You want me to drive? How so? I can give them Tokyo Drift, Jeremy Lin, Mario Kart, Tiger Woods, blinker left on for about half a mile. I am the foremost expert on all things Asian. The Meiji era and the ban of the samurai, done. Confucianism versus Taoism, I'll give it to you with no slant. What's the difference between Asian stereotype 1 and 2? Well, let me tell you anything you want to know about my culture. Let me tell you in a Mulan-esque soliloquy of me staring in the mirror asking, who is that girl staring that I see? Let me tell you about Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee and how they're related by blood to me. Let me tell you about all being so marginalized. It's to the point of I really can't believe that's Asian. Let me tell you about derogatory terms and origins of words such as chink and gook. Let me tell you about the struggle of Asian parents not knowing the language, so we ate whatever we could afford. Let me tell you about the job of interpreter. When you're playing with Lego blocks, but your English is already that much better than your guardians, let me tell you about honor and dignity. Let me tell you about a society that projects us nothing but the secondary role and never the leading man. Let me tell you all the things that you do not want to know. Like how chink comes from the clanking of metal to railroads as the slaves built train tracks for this country to be connected, like how the zipper head down the street is called that because the way our heads split open when struck with assault weapons, or how jeeps ran over and left marks across corpses and someone clever thought that we were only good to unzip, like how every time you lump an Asian person together into one culture, it's systematically making us assimilate into an America that we thought was better than our war-torn homes, and every time you confuse me with some other nationality that I might share similar features to strips away my individuality, and I still feel the shame of being Asian, but also the heat and pious dedication of June 11th, 1963, the envy of blonde hair and blue eyes, and I still remember thinking where all the boys that looked like me on TV were. The broken words of my mother and father stage diving off my tongue, the anger I felt when those kids thought I'd get them sick, and I still feel the ash of the incense burn my hands when I prayed for my family, and I still remember thinking my skin was what I was worth, and I still feel the ironwork of my bones grow stronger with every train of thought that passes by, and I still feel pride, and I still feel heritage, and I still feel Chinese, and I still feel Vietnamese, and I still feel American, and I still feel. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex Dane. That was very amazing. Thank you for being here with us today and sharing your narrative and your pieces. That I was really impressed. So let me share my screen really quick. So Alex Dane will also be here. If you want to come back, he'll be also sharing a few more pieces at the closing performance as well. So make sure you don't want to miss that as well. So next up in our program, you'll be going into your small groups, Power Up in the Midst of COVID-19. So in there, you should, in your email, you should have received specific links to your assigned room, and then making sure that you are in the correct assigned room. So is Katie on? Is Kate our registration? And so make sure you also have the link to your conference magazine. So that will be helpful for you. So all the information is in your conference magazine. And then most important, the links that you have, we advise that you do not share that publicly or anyone else. Those links are specific to you just for the safety and security of this online conference. So make sure that that is kept confidential to you as well only. So without further ado, we'll be staying on here for a few more minutes. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat bar here if you have any questions or any issues getting into your small group. So Hope you have a really good conference. Enjoy your small groups. And we'll see you back here at 12:45 p.m. for the social circle.